Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. I wanted to say another thing on cutting. Like what we did, we defined a cut is just, a motion from a starting position forward, backwards to its original starting position, so you have the same spatial coordinates, but some amount of time has elapsed. So I want to extend that and kind of generalize, first discussing cutting specifically, but we showed cutting is a form of vibration, and it's physically and logically consistent. You might say, well, again, like we said, you can take a knife and just cut down, and you can say that the page is cut, and everyone's going to know exactly what you mean. But to say that if you bring the knife up, down, and back up, it's not physically wrong or logically inconsistent to say that is a cut. And when you define something, then you have solidity, so you can start to assess it if it's true or not true. And so we're defining cut again as a complete motion or as a complete cycle. Spatial coordinates return to the remain the same over some amount of elapsed time. No work is done overall, right? And so, because you need motion for work, and vibration is not motion. And so, more on cutting. Cut to laceration, what scratch is to abrasion. We use the word abrasive or abrasion in the editing last video, but a scratch is to abrasion. It's just a less severe form of a cut, and a cut is to a laceration. Just logical nuance, but it was very direct analogy, or you can just plug it into the form of the solution. To cut is to scrape, or no, I just have to serrate. Lacerate, serrate, serration, laceration. A cut is a serration. But that's, again, a word we use regularly. It's already defined. Movement cannot occur in a moment. Just again, differentiating vibration from movement. But can we now generalize, can we make and say, let's throw something out there. Can we say that all verbs are forms of vibration? So vibration, verbation, variates, verbation, verbation like verb, verbation, variates, vibration variates verbation. Boom. Vibration variates verbation. So can we say that all verbs are forms of vibration, and can we prove that in completeness? Now that's a massive step if we can do that, because then we can categorize all verbs, indiscriminate or independent of a given language. So that's kind of an idea of what we're doing. Again, a lot of times in research, the biggest thing you're trying to do is figure out what questions you're trying to ask and what the end goal is, because if you're on the actual frontier, it's an unknown. You don't really know what you're trying to do. And that's when I say I'm a brute force logician. I just keep stating fact after fact after fact, one foot after the other, and then I look back after so much, a given amount of time, and then look back to see what I've covered, but I'm just focusing on one foot after the other to see, that's an analogy, but just to focus on one step to build before you try to make a big jump. And so we're again, like we said, we're proving the element of, or the axiom of sensorality. So we're proving that this word describes real physical things, then we're going to solve real physical problems. So vibration variates verbation. Whatever said, I'll do it in the editing, it'll be on the screen. But if we can prove that all verbs are forms of vibration, huge chunk in our proof. And a huge result of itself, obviously. But like every video, it's like a set of proofs, man. It's crazy. But so what was I going to say? So can we say? So before we can get to that, how about let's try to do a lowercase? Let's say, can we describe anything else, any other verb that is fundamental that everybody knows? Because like I said, we have to connect this sensorality, this word you've never heard, to a word that you know of intuitively. So it's probably going to be cut. I mean, well, that's the first jump we've made. But everyone knows what cutting is. Something a kindergartner learns with scissors. And so, how about bouncing, right? So the way I want to get to that, but I want you to think of the word bouncing and have that in your brain. So we've discussed physically about why I'm not really sure. I don't like the word light. Whatever momentum transfer, however we see things, I do not like the word light for that physical phenomenon. I went through this with speciality as well. What is the contradiction? Is there a contradiction? But then I just have, can light reflect? If somebody says you see light, you'll just focus on the visible light spectrum. immediately generalizable to anything of electromagnetic radiation. But you see something, you see a color. What color do you see? That is the color, it is the wavelength, it is the frequency that is reflected. It bounces off something. The operative term will go from reflection to bounce. So I wanted to focus on bouncing. Is bounce a form of vibration? Physically. Not words, physically. And is it logically consistent to say so? Well, what is a bounce? If I bounce a basketball, right? Mass hits mass, one mass deforms, boom, and goes back up. So I really like then you get the wave, immediately get the intuition of a wave from like the base of a speaker, putting vibration through its coils, burn, burn, burn. And so that wave of like the speaker going in and out, that's what I think of bouncing as fundamentally. Oscillation, undulation, vibration. And so I think bouncing, we can say, is proven to be a form of vibration. But then A plus B equals C, and then C, or then A plus B equals C plus D, the law of syllogism. This plus this equals that plus this equals that, whatever it is. But then we have to equate, is bouncing cutting? It'd be obviously not, like in practical application of what the word actually translates, what it means. It's a form of, right? It's a variation of vibration, to be a verbation, to be a verb. But clearly, very, very distinct. So now we have a distinct difference between two everyday verbs, phenomenon, physical processes that everybody knows, cutting and bouncing, and we can still logically, consistently define them as forms of vibration. Can we extend that to all verbs? And my guess is yes. But can light reflect? If they say light reflect, they're going to say the word bounce. If they say the word bounce, they're going to have to go through the analysis we just did. But they are discrete forms of vibration, meaning back to the logic, cutting and bouncing. If you say that to somebody, clearly they're different words, but they would indicate to any 3-year-old or 5-year-old that speaks English natively a different physical process. So then I just want to finish up by redefining vibration. Vibration is defined as any cyclic process, again, that it has some elapsed time, that does something in an elapsed time, and returns to the starting position. So the spatial coordinates over the elapsed time does not change, but amount of time passes. So the system is not the same, but it's spatially the same place. So its vibration is defined as cyclicity. And then we can show the word cyclicity. We can see the direct iteration of the letter Y, just like the letter Y in rhythm, from Y to I in rhythm to algorithm. We have vibration, or in cyclicity, we have Y to I. So something's going on there, super nuanced, getting closer, turning that notch closer and closer till we get the full picture. But so overall, this really kind of gets into more of like philosophical things of like, what is the large scale, talking about the universe, literally everything, the definable and observable universe, and everything that we can infer past that, just whatever everything could possibly mean. What's the final state in building, contracting, is it all going to burn up, a heat death, or is it going to be really cold? It's still not a meaningful question. So I hate to burst your bubble, but it's still just not a meaningful question. I do have some intuition, but it's not even meaningful to articulate. So I'm going to leave that at nothing for now, or just no comment. In terms of there will be no end, so to speak, of the universe, but in terms of mass formation in I don't know. I'll say I don't know because I don't know, but I'm not even going to try to articulate any sort of intuition. But there's a phrase, right? From dust we were made, and to dust we shall return. Work requires movement. Movement is not vibration. Vibration doesn't move. And so if you don't move over an elapsed period of time, you're not violating any conservation law. That is why all of this is physically consistent. Proven. We've proven the consistency of language. Now we've proven the consistency of physics. Sick. For the 3rd time in my life, still live at my mom's house. Awesome. But it doesn't violate any conservation laws, and we've proven that logically, consistently, physically. And so legacy is just what you leave over. We talked about legality and legacy, and they're clearly based on the same base syllable. So your legacy, leave this place better than you found it. Because if you don't really get to the completion of, make the best out of your life, you kind of get stuck at like nihilism, like nothing really matters because you kind of return to zero, you die. So it's like, well, still, leave, your actions do matter. Your soul does matter. Your character does matter. Don't really like the word soul, still too philosophical and kumbaya or some sort of, there's religious connotation still hanging around that word or something, but right, you're an individual, you contribute to the world. You can't erase a computer file completely from the universe. You can't erase your impact on the world, no matter what you do, good or bad, in between. So that was cool. That was a good little segment. Still not really sure what to do with the word light. But again, just putting together all of these different things. We'll probably end here for today's recording. Just finishing up to tease the next will be, again, sorality. Again, the basis of sensorality, and then moving on to just, again, iterating, adding another letter. Reality, we talked about how that's just a re and then ality, and then or sorality, again, clearly it has the pronunciation of sore, and then ality, sorality, so it's based on, we can relate it to the word sore, and I just put sore reality, again, adding that, so then we have two complete words, so and reality. Again, just continuing the logic, but we can have a new fundamental theorem of mathematics stated as separation is the opposite of integration. And so that's complete. That will be in the same, I didn't even say it out loud, I tried to say it, but the inconsistency in mathematical notation of less than and then greater than's the wrong word. It's more than, like more or less, moral-less, right? That combines into moral-less, like morality, moral-less, but more or less, not greater or less. So we have to modify the logical implication of the mathematical operators. And the operators this is already axiomatized. This has been axiomatized since antiquity. But what are the implications? Where does that derive from? Because again, we talked about existence, then the physical concept of logic before words. Like just the intuition of needing to be more efficient to survive. And then, and I forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, just we have to modify that level of intuition for a mathematical operator, division, integration, right? The opposite of integration is exponentiation, but integrate, right? Grating, G-R-A-T-E, is a form of a filter, right? F-I-L-T-E-R. So now we're connecting that to the logic of sensorality. Then once we can prove that and reduce that linguistically and show the logical implications, boom, then we're almost done. We are so close, not sure how long it's going to take, but all of the pieces are right there. And so I'm going to finish this up here and go back to editing, and I will see you on the next one.